Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to study chapter 2, that is motion in one dimension. Now what do you mean by motion in one dimension? When a body is moving in one dimension, or you can say in straight path, then its motion is called one dimensional motion. It is also called motion in straight line or rectilinear motion. Now we need to define certain terms. First is your physical quantity. What do you mean by physical quantity? The quantity which can be measured are known as your physical quantity. These are classified into two categories. First is your scalar and second is vector. Scalar quantities are those quantities which have only magnitude. Means they have no direction. While vector quantities are those quantities which has magnitude as well as direction. Now, example of scalar quantities are mass, length, time and distance. There are certain more examples you can learn. Then, example of vector quantities is force, displacement, velocity, acceleration, etc. For expressing your scalar and vector quantities, we need certain parameters. First, I'll discuss parameters to express scalar quantities. There are two parameters in which the scalar quantities can be expressed. First is your unit. Second is numerical value, or we can say magnitude. For example, if I say that the mass of a body is 5 kg, then in this example 5 is your magnitude and kg is a unit. Similarly, there are certain parameters to express vector quantities. First is your unit, second numerical value or magnitude, and third is direction. As I told you, there are three parameters for expressing vector quantities: unit, numerical value and direction. Now, for example, if we have a surface and I have placed certain object on that surface. Let us suppose that I am applying force F is equal to 10 Newton on that object. Then, in this case, 10 is your numerical value or magnitude. Newton is a unit of force, so it is unit. And in which direction I am applying force? Let it be, we know the four directions. This is north, south, east and west. I am applying force in east direction. So we can see that the body is being displaced towards east on applying a force of 10 Newton. So these are your vector quantities. Now remember that vector quantities are represented by this arrow sign. For example, if I write force F, then this arrow represents that force is a vector quantity. Now again, if I write minus F vector, this means that the F and minus F are in opposite direction. Direction changes with a negative sign. So we can conclude that vector quantities are those quantities which have magnitude as well as your direction. Dear students, now I'll tell you about certain more terms, that is rest and motion. We all know that all the bodies in a universe are in motion. Every day we see our bodies moving around us. So, a body can be in a state of rest or in a state of motion. Now, when we will say that a body is in a state of rest? When there is no change in its position, that is position of an object with respect to surrounding, its surrounding, then we can say that object is in a state of rest. Now, what do you mean by motion? A body is said to be in a state of motion when there is change in its state with respect to its surrounding. Dear students, remember, same body can be in a state of rest or in a state of motion at a time. For example, if a bus is moving in a straight path and the passengers are sitting in a bus, then we are in a state of rest for the passengers sitting in a bus. Like these are two passengers, they are sitting in a bus. So for them, the person is in a state of rest. But for a person who's looking to the passengers from outside, for him, these passengers are in a state of motion. Thus, we can conclude that rest and motion are relative terms.